Continuing the story, Tess, my German Shepherd, did inspire fear. She inspired fear in other dogs. She hated other dogs. She hated her own kind. She also inspired fear in men specifically. And by that, I mean any man whose shade of skin was darker than mine, she hated and would go after. We think that we got her in an abused state. She had a huge scratch on her nose. She was to be feared. People kept their distance, but she took care of me very well. In terms of her superpowers, one day I returned from doing errands. I had left her in her crate. She had a huge 6-foot by 6-foot crate she could hang out in the garage. Of course, it didn't have a top on it. It was 6 feet tall, and she was a very diminutive German Shepherd. I opened the garage, or garage opens, and there she is walking around outside of the crate. I thought, strange. She must have jumped up and over it. I waited for it to happen one more time. I called my friend Karen, who had given me the dog. She said, yeah, that's the only other explanation. I mean, it's a very solid locked crate. We thought, okay, fine. She can jump pretty high. She said, no worries. I'll send my husband Jim over. He will install a really big, thick taut tarp. He'll stretch it across the top, which he did. This was like something you'd see on a ship. There was very little room all around. That worked well. She stayed contained in her crate whenever we did errands. Then we moved to our new, smaller home, set up the crate, same way. I was doing errands on another day. I get a phone call from my husband, who really was too sick to even get out of a chair, but he had happened to look out the window. He called me. He said, you better come home soon. And I said, why? What's wrong now? He said, Tess is running around in the backyard. And I said, that is impossible. She is in her crate. It's locked. It's got a tarp. Impossible. He said, well, you better come home. I came home, take her in the house, look at the crate, check it out, looking for openings. I noticed the tarp. There is a humongous, gargantuan hole that had been apparently clawed at. Apparently she had jumped. You could see claw marks, and it looked like taffy, like these teeth had torn it apart. She had, we don't know how many umpteen times, jumped and took a nip, took a nip, took a nip. She was so determined until she got a hole and jumped out of that crate. Now, 6 feet tall, and she was very unassuming. I thought, that is ridiculous. That is, I can't, everyone was astounded who I told, especially Karen. The next day, we had some workmen come over. They were fixing up this new house as well. One of the workmen, his name was Mike. He was a big burly guy, big party guy, about 6'6", 4 o'clock stubble, the ruddy skin, the silver hair. He was in his mid-40s. He didn't let anything bother him. He liked to talk about how he partied on the weekend and went up to the cabin with the other guys. He got out of the car, and I'm waiting right there at the window. I said, Mike, because he was going to go to the garage where Tess's crate was. And so they were very familiar with her, and they kept their distance as she would growl, as they'd be running chainsaws or whatever. I said, Tess jumped out of her crate. He goes, no. I said, yes. She chewed a hole at the top of this crate. I don't know how many hours it took. And she jumped out of the crate. And he said, no. But you could tell his curiosity was piqued. At this point, to me, it felt like the entire scenario turned into a black and white Godzilla movie, where Godzilla in the background is eating skyscrapers and dangling people between his teeth. And I'm the little towns-lady talking to the cop. And I'm saying, come see the devastation that Godzilla has wrought. I mean, it had that type of frenetic energy. And he's like the cop, like, this better be good, ma'am. So to heighten the excitement, there were cars parked in the driveway. Our garage is way at the end. So you have to go down the driveway, and then it's a slow curve down the driveway. He's like, this fuck. I go, look for yourself. And he starts very analytically. He looks at the bottom of the crate. He goes, my God. That's it. That's the story.